This is the Times Television Network, and you're watching ET Now.
The cabinet clears 51% FDI in multi-brand retail and 100% in single-brand retail, paving the way for big boys like Walmart and Carrefour to set up shop in India.
Cabinet clears the company's bill, which will now be tabled in the winter session of Parliament. The bill gives more teeth to the fraud office, calls for stricter corporate governance and keeps an eye on independent directors.
And a day after he gets the mandate to run the Tata empire, Cyrus Mistry meets Ratan Tata at Bombay House, also holds discussions with top Tata Group officials like Krishna Kumar and Muthuraman.
Good news for consumers and a reform finally that's come through. A retail revolution is all set to take place. The cabinet has cleared the big ticket item on the agenda, foreign direct investment in retail. You will have 51% in multi-brand retailers like Carrefour, Walmart, who can now enter India with partners. This means global chains will be allowed openly in the India story. 100% in single brand retail has been cleared.
This move comes despite opposition from some key allies of the government. Of course, it will now need to get the nod of the parliament, but it's a big reform move that the government has finally taken as far as FDI in retail is concerned. We've got some of the biggest voices in the industry joining us live on Business Tonight with their perspective on this retail revolution that we're going to see here in India. Joining us over the next 60 minutes, Kishore Biyani speaking exclusively to ET Now. We've also got Thomas Verghese, Chairman of the CII Committee on Retail and the CEO of Aditya Vikram Birla Group Retail. Will be joined by Raj Jain of Walmart in just a bit. Biju Kurian of Reliance Retail will also be joining us over the next 60 minutes. Plenty of big voices right here on Business Tonight. But first up, Mr. Biyani, what's your own sense? Will FDI and multi-brand retail be a game changer for the sector?
I see it as a game changer, especially in a lot of retailers who believe in India's story would look at India. We would see on the single brand retail a significant amount of investment on the home retail side. I believe there is a retailer who can come up with $1 billion to $2 billion investment out there. I am seeing a lot of retailers investing huge sums of money on the multi-brand retail side. I expect of around $6 to $8 billion of investment can come in a short to medium term. So I think India's much needed capital can come into this. Thirdly, it will create consumption, which will create manufacturing, which will create jobs. Fourthly, it will create a lot of demand for real estate spaces, so that market should also boom. It will create a lot of jobs, a lot of new opportunities, and a lot of other ancillary and service industry.
Right, Mr. Biyani, of course, that's critical. You're welcoming this story. Let's get Thomas Verghese of the Aditya Birla Group. Clearly one group that's looked at retail in many ways, including its hypermarket business. Mr. Verghese, positive, negative?
I think it's something we've been waiting for a long time, and I completely welcome it on behalf of CII, on behalf of the whole industry. I think it's a very progressive move, and I think it will bring in a completely new era of retailing into this country, with a lot of investments coming from international retailers, funds being made available to domestic retailers to expand operations. I think it's a very, very good move, and I heartily welcome it on behalf of the CII as well as on behalf of the entire retail fraternity. All right,
Mr. Verghese, stay with us. We've also got Raj Jain, the man who heads the Bharti Walmart venture, here joining us live from Gurgaon. Mr. Raj Jain, thank you so much for joining us live on the show. We're also joined by Biju Kurian, President and Chief Executive of Lifestyle at Reliance Retail. But Raj Jain, to you first, because I think in many ways Walmart has been waiting for this, for this reform for years now. Your reactions to the government clearing 51% FDI in multi-brand retail and 100% FDI in single-brand retail?
I think we obviously welcome this move. It's been a decision and it's taken some time in the making and it's been debated for several years now, and we are very glad and happy that the government has finally cleared 51% in multi-brand retailing and also 100% in single brand retailing.
Raj, what does this mean for you? What are the next steps? I'm sure you've all been prepared, and I've been seeing you writing several articles in the Economic Times saying, let's open up. We've been lobbying for some time. It's finally through. It's what you wanted. How soon do we expect you to make some moves on the front of possibly giving consumers good news?
Well, first of all, we await details tomorrow in the Parliament. The Minister said that they are going to, share details with us as to what the caveats are on this 51. So while we are all celebrating and happy tonight, we just need to know what the fine print says and what the conditions are. Secondly, as you know, we've been here in India for almost 5 years now, and 2.5 to 3 years, operating cash and carry stores. So we have an understanding of India, we have an understanding of Indian consumers, supply chains and suppliers, and based on the conditions attached to this opening, I think we will be soon ready and willing to invest in back end and front end to take this opportunity and move forward and help our consumers save money.
Rajan, you spoke of some of the conditions, and here at ET Now we have exclusive details of some of the riders that seem to have come with this decision to open up FDI, and I want to take you through some of them, specifically mandatory investment of $100 million for foreign retailers, largely along expected lines, 50% of total investment in developing back-end, 60% sourcing from small farmers to be made mandatory, and 30% sourcing from SMEs to be made mandatory. These were 4 conditions that in many ways the industry was expecting, and we've seen them getting cleared as well.
Yeah, so I mean, we've heard about some of these conditions in the past, so this is not the official version or the list, so difficult for me to comment with certainty. But as I said earlier, I think making investments in the back-end infrastructure, in the supply chain is not an issue for us. Walmart worldwide is known for saving consumers money and doing it through an efficient back-end supply chain, and therefore we are willing and able to do those. Other conditions, I'm not so sure what those are and how they will be implemented. So unless we see the fine print tomorrow, I think it's difficult for me to comment.
Okay, let's get in. Biju Kurian, who's joining us live from Bangalore. Biju, you've seen sort of the retail revolution in India take up, then go through a trough, and this is possibly going to help it kickstart once again. Talk to us about what kind of brands do you expect to step in? Because several of them made an attempt, both on 100% retail on the single brand and 51% on multi-brand. But now must be really keen to step in. Which brands do you see, Biju? Biju, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Great. Which brands are you expecting to step in?
I think as far as there are many international brands which have stayed out of India, many of them expecting to find a more facilitative regime which allows them to be able to come in directly on their own. So when you look at it from a single brand perspective, there are large furniture retailers, there are large apparel retailers, there are large electronics retailers, all of whom have been looking at India with some curiosity and interest and looking forward to the policy reforms which have currently been announced. So I expect them to be coming in. On the multi-brand side, many of the large international retailers are already present in this country, albeit at the back end. And I would expect them to be making a more concerted effort as far as the front end is concerned because of these reforms which have been announced today.
But Biju Kurian, what's your own sense? How much time will it take for this policy to finally take shape? Because obviously it needs to get the approval of the parliament. There is opposition from BJP and the left as well. What's your own sense?
Well, I would hesitate to actually make a prediction as far as that is concerned. I think what we've seen on television so far is that the Minister is going to be making a statement on this in Parliament. I guess after that the Parliament will have to arrive at a consensus. This is a policy decision which has been taken by the government. So to that extent, there is a distinction between what happens in Parliament versus what the government might decide in terms of a policy decision. Even after this becomes a reality, my sense is that it will take a while before you can create impact. It's not that a retail business can be built overnight. It requires a significant amount of investment. It requires a fair amount of effort. All of that takes time.
Indeed, it does. Vijay, let me just interject there. I want to just pick up the thing that you said. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. Now, the expectations, Rajan, from the government have been that retailers such as yours will eventually reach out to the farmer. Keep in mind the kind of benefits that, you know, small mom-and-pop stores need to keep to survive. In what ways can FDI opening up in retail help not just consumers, but the stakeholders, the farmers, the rural, the rural small mom and pop stores? How do you see all of this play out? Raj? Can you hear me, Rajan? The impact of FDI and retail on the larger masses. What are we likely to see is going to be the impact on the rural areas? For example, those who are the suppliers to large chains like you.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, again, it depends on the finer print and the details. The earlier proposal was to restrict FDI to 1 million plus cities, which only means it will cover 11-12% of India's population, so it won't really be allowed to, or foreign companies will not be allowed to invest in retail in the rural areas, if you like. Having said that, I think the supply chain benefits both to the farmers as well as small manufacturers are immense, and even in our cash and carry business, we are seeing lots of small manufacturers moving from being regional players to being national players as a part of the distribution which we are trying to set up in place. So I see a lot of benefit for both small manufacturers as well as for farmers in being able to move their products and produce around the country and have a supply chain to do it without having to rely on the current infrastructure, which is both inefficient as well as expensive at times.
But we've also got Kishore Biyani with us. Mr. Biyani, I'm sure Raj Jain and some of the global companies are looking to enter the Indian market now in a much larger way. Do you think that this fierce competition in this sector could have a negative impact for homegrown companies like yours?
I think we are adding up another 9 million square foot in the next 3 to 4 years. If the competition comes in also, we would be at 25 million square foot and they would be starting with less than 1 million square foot. So I think we are reasonably ahead in the race. Organic growth is very difficult in a country like India or any other emerging countries. So I think it will be a slow start for anybody who will come in. We have a reasonable good place and understanding of the Indian markets and consumers. And real estate is one of the raw materials on which you grow. And we believe that we are quite well placed to meet and look at any competition. We are very strong in the first top 10 cities of India. We have reasonable and large presence. We would have 16-18 stores in Bombay in terms of our food business. If anybody comes in, we'll have to start with one store. I think 1 upon 18. I somehow believe that the competition should be worried about us rather than we being worried about the competition.
Okay, Thomas Verghese of Aditya Birla Group is also here. Every single retailer who matters in this story of India's growth today and is going to cash in on FDI and retail is present on Business Tonight. Mr. Verghese, how will the AV Birla Group look at the opening up of this sector and how will you participate specifically?
No, we haven't been discussing with any foreign investors. However, I'm sure that a lot of people would be interested in tying up, and I think we will take it as it comes. But as a group, we have not actively pursued any particular partner for joining up with us.
Biju Kurian, what about this whole talk of FDI and retail could do good to our inflation? Do you really buy that argument? Is that something that you think will happen? Do you think once we allow FDI and retail, it will have a positive impact on bringing down inflation as well? And how?
I think the biggest benefit that everybody sees with FDI and retail is that there would be significant investments made in the back end, especially in the supply chain. And one of the issues with today's food supply chain, especially in the agricultural product space, is that there are a lot of intermediaries, and these add to the costs, though they don't add to the value of what is being transported from the farms to the stores. When you have FDI coming in, and also with domestic players like us who made investments in the back end, certainly it's helped us to be able to reduce our cost of acquisition of produce. A lot of this needs to get passed